Welcome to One on One with the Grim One. This is the black metal party that goes all night long, and I am your host, the most electrifying man in co-ops entertainment, the Necrosexual. And joining me on this morbid talk, welcome to my wet dream. We have Barney from Napalm Death. Barney, how the hell are you?
How are you, man? Yeah, I'm not too bad, man. Not too bad at all. Not too bad.
Totally grim. So let's jump right into it, Barney. Napalm Death has a new album, Throes of Joy, in the jaws of defeatism. So right off the bat, Barney, how are you finding Jaw in the jaws of defeatism today?
Yeah, I'm all right actually. I'm quite positive. It's unusually for the UK in October. It's the sun in the sky, and it's quite warm, So you got to be thankful for small mercies. But yeah, I'm all right, man. I'm just floating on by.
Grinding away with the
Yes,
hellacious
indeed.
new
So
album.
yeah.
And this album, it's Napalm Death's first studio record in about 5 years, which in grindcore years, that's a very, very long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a matter of circumstances. Wasn't planned that way, but copious amounts of touring coupled with little things here and there that just kind of trip things up a little bit. Yeah, but it's all right. It's I don't think that the new album suffers for the the amount of time that it took. So I'm quite fairly pleased with it. So
tell me, Barney, did this 5 year pause, did that afford you any new creative opportunities with the creation of this new album?
To be honest, Jim, it would have been the same if it had taken 2 years or 3 years. The influences and the reference points on this album are timeless ones. So it would have. I think it would have come out the same way. I don't think it would have been drastically far removed from what it has turned out to be. So.
Timeless brutality from the masters, Napalm Death. And indeed, you're a band, your style has evolved, slowed down, sped up over time. What about, do you think there was a new direction, or I heard certainly a lot more punk influences, especially on your new single, Immoral, but then you have songs like Backlash, Just Because, that kind of have a Fear, Emptiness, Despair kind of vibe, but then stays totally brutal, blasting away. So tell me about the sound.
Yeah, I mean, all we do, it's not calculated, it's not like a mathematical equation or something like that. It's how we feel at the time, and the influences that you refer to have been in the band since, well, the Scum album, really, the first album and before that, so that they're nothing that's completely, they're not kind of a new cat that's been pulled out of the bag. It's that they've always been there. It's just we've developed them, and I think the focus of the songwriting now is at the point where the influences, the traditional and the more I guess left field influences in Napalm Death, fuse together a lot better now. So they all, whereas arguably a few albums ago you would have said, well, yeah, that's one kind of song, that's another kind of song, and that's another kind of song. Now the elements are in one. Do you know what I mean? So each song has perhaps 3 or 4 different aspects to it.
Indeed, you could say that your sound is evolved as one.
Buntish. Yeah.
I cracked myself up. Don't mind.
Well, yeah, me too.
Excellent. And of course, Barney, your vocals sound just as brutal as ever, like a fine wine they've aged. So what is your secret for keeping your vocal cords as guttural and as growly and as aggressive as ever?
Mate, there isn't one. It's anatomical, whatever it is. I just kind of open my mouth and it comes out that way. I don't do. I know a lot of singers do like throat treatments. Whether it's natural ones like lemon or whatever else, and some people take ginger, and so other people do. I don't. My thing has always been, obviously your whole vocal, the anatomy of your of your the vocal organs in your body are connected to everything else. So if you look after yourself generally, your voice kind of looks after itself. Or at least I've found, I know it's not the same for everybody, because I do know a couple of singers that get really frustrated because they just crap out, like quite easily, and that must be really frustrating. I'm just lucky I'm not in that situation where it happens to me, so I'm thankful for that, definitely.
Yes, and how do you take care of yourself, Barney? Tell us about your heavy metal self-care regimens.
I don't have any heavy metal self-care regime, if I'm honest, but no, just same as anything else, really. I mean, just I eat healthily. I was watching my diet. In terms of alcohol, very very moderate drinker. And exercise, cycling. And so yeah, just the basics, really. I don't. I'm not an obsessive when it comes to it. In terms of the strength training and stuff like that, but I do every day do a certain amount, enough to keep my good cardio fitness and stuff like that. So it works for me. I can only say what works for me.
Indeed. And Napalm Death, they are the ultimate Frankenstein band with no original members since their formation in 1981, and still going strong, just with a new team, along with your bandmate, another veteran member, the Brad Pitt of grindcore, Shane Embury.
Yeah.
So, tell me, Barney, what was your Napalm Death audition like? Take us back in the day.
Well, mate, you got to remember this. Certainly, where Napalm, obviously, his roots was in the hardcore punk scene, and the whole ethos around that is you don't audition. If you think you can get somebody in your band that might be able to do a job, you just do it. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't audition. I mean, Shane and Mickey, the previous drummer, who got me into the band, they knew what I could do. I'd had a couple of other bands. They knew what I could do. I was friends with them, so it's more of a friendship thing. And when Lee left and Jesse came in to replace Bill on guitar as well, they just asked me to do it. I didn't audition. They didn't ask me to. So just kind of just did it, got on with it. So
delivering the goods. And I was looking forward to seeing Napalm Death in Philadelphia, my home, to see you perform two of my favorite albums, Harmony Corruption and Utopia Banished, at the Decibel Fest another time. But I want to revisit those albums for a second, because Harmony Corruption was the first death metal album that I ever bought, and the rest is history. And I was reading something that your bandmate wrote, Shane. He was ranking all of the Napalm Death albums, and I was surprised that Harmony Corruption was actually pretty low on his list, despite having, yeah. Do you feel the same? Yeah, tell me about that.
So here's the weird thing, and I think this is probably applies to a lot of people in bands or whatever. So what's necessarily the popular choice is not always the band's favorite. The thing with Harmony Corruption, I think it's got some really good songs on it, but for me the production is not a Napalm Death production. It's not raw enough. It's too compressed. For me, that's not to say it's bad. It would suit a lot of bands, but it doesn't suit Napalm Death. And I just want to say it's no reflection on Scott Burns, who we worked with for the album. Scott was fantastic, but Scott did what Scott thought was appropriate, which I don't think was necessarily what was right for Napalm Death, so yeah, I've got mixed feelings about that album. I mean, it's a moment in time, it went pretty well. Obviously it's a lot of people really love it, and a lot of people rate it as their favorite Napalm Death album, but I can't, it's just not, it doesn't hit those heights for me, you know. So I think me and Shane would probably be in agreement on that, you know. So yeah, it's just one of them things, you know. But I would never. The one thing to say, Jim, is that whilst I say that, I would never re-record it, because I think I always look upon albums at any point in time to be a stepping stone to what comes after it. So you need to kind of make those moves to make your moves later on, if that makes any sense, you know. So I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, it's part of the history of the band, and it's definitely valid, and I would never. I'm not embarrassed by it. I don't seek to belittle it or minimize it. You know, it is what it is, you know. So
It certainly wasn't a phase you're going through. Dad.
yeah, well, yeah. But yeah, you know, and the point about one interesting thing, you know, is that it gets called a death metal album, but it was never intended to be that way. You know, I think it's termed that by association, you know, because we did it at Morrisound, because we did it with Scott Burns. You know, there's a couple of vocal guest appearances on there by, you know, people in the death metal scene from around there. But it was never intended to be a death metal album, really. You know, it's just intended to be a Napalm Death album. It's just we were, as a new incarnation of the band, we were kind of finding our feet, you know, and that's the way it kind of came out, you know. So
this is one-on-one with the Grim One. So one question that I do ask my guests is, I want to know one album that holds a special place in your heart.
well, my it's always been my favorite album, you know. That I have many albums that are there or thereabouts, but like edging ahead is Ace of Spades by Motorhead. You know, to me that was the first extreme album, unintentionally or otherwise, but it's just absolutely vibrant. You know, it's alive. You know, the sound of it is just amazing, and the songs are incredible. You know, it's a you know, it was obviously Motorhead were, you know, embraced hugely by, I guess, the metal community, but also by the hardcore punk, you know, community. So they transcended boundaries, you know. They were very much associated with just the regular punk scene as well. You know, they were friends and played with bands like the Damned, you know, and people like that. So they were as a three-piece, Motorhead were untouchable, I would suggest. You know, I saw them live back then, and they were fucking incredible, you know. So Ace of Spades, you know, definitely.
Indeed. And Barney, I gotta ask you, I love my heavy metal mashup. So did you know that if you play the Napalm Death album, Fear, Emptiness, Despair, over an episode of The Simpsons, it totally sounds like the character Barney from The Simpsons is singing along to Napalm Death?
Well, because that would be me. Yeah. So I can understand that. Yeah.
Is that
Mate,
how you
I've never tried that. The first time I've heard it, so that must probably be a world first, you know.
Is that how you got your nickname, Barney, from
No,
The Simpsons?
well, to give you the short story, so hardcore punk band called Doom, also from Birmingham. The drummer Stick, really old friend of mine, and he gave me the nickname because basically when I wasn't a moderate drinker, when I was more of an excessive drinker back in the day, I was one of these really clumsy drunks. So I would, like, if there was a heater on the wall at somebody's house and I just leaned on it while I was drunk, you know, just for some support, it would completely fall off the wall, you know, and therefore really annoying the person whose heater it was quite significantly. So, you know, just like really, you know, really sort of clumsy drunk, you know, and that clumsiness gave me that Barney name. So Barney Rubble, in other words, turning things into rubble. So that's actually where it comes from. So
turning heaters and also your eardrums to rubble with those punishing napalm death riffs.
hopefully, still to this day, yeah.
Indeed, still going strong. And Barney, what do you want to say to all the heavy metal hellraisers who are watching at home?
Hey man, do your thing. Look after yourself, stay safe. Raise your hell as you see fit, and just be nice to people. Be nice to each other, man. That's what I would say.
Check out Napalm Death's crushing new album out there. And I am the Necrosexual. I will see you in hell. Thanks a lot, Barney.
Thank you, Jim. All the best, my friend.